Joining me now is Jennie Taer, immigration reporter for the Daily Caller, to talk about that crisis at the southern border. Jennie, unlawful crossings along that border have reached levels not seen for several months. What is happening down there?
That's right. In recent days, we've seen large surges of migrants come across illegally. Now, what's happened is that there's been many that have jumped on top of trains in Mexico, and Mexico has actually stopped service with some of these trains. Now, they're still pouring in by the thousands into small areas of the border towns like Eagle Pass, Texas, which just declared a state of emergency. Now, we're talking about a town of around 28,000 people, and that's really affected when you have 1,000, 2,000 stream in just a couple of days. In San Diego, for example, you're seeing a surge of people, and that's leading to the migrants being released onto the streets to fend for themselves because there's just not enough resources. Meanwhile, in the interior of the country, you still see that suffering going on within states like New York, which have seen over 100,000 migrants in, just about a year's time, and the city asking for resources. Now, they're a sanctuary city, and of course, there's repercussions to that. But this is having, effects all across our nation, and it doesn't appear to be stopping.
Jennie, two things strike me as I watch this footage and look at some of the things we've seen on our screens and which I've been following all week online. Number one, the way the migrants seem to walk past border agents with impunity, sometimes having fences held open for them by officials. And number two, the fact that even though they claim to be seeking asylum, they are young men, predominantly young men, not women and children who you would normally think of being the people fleeing conflict zones. Tell me, what does this say about claims, A, that these people are mostly refugees, and B, claims by Biden administration officials that the border is actually secure?
Right. Well, what's happening is you are seeing a stream of largely adult males come through, mostly Venezuelans right now in places like Eagle Pass, which we just talked about. That area is seeing them come through by the thousands. They're getting released very quickly into the country, and this is despite what the Biden administration says, which is that they're securing the border, that they're stopping the flow, and that they're increasing penalties for people. But when migrants come across, they're released into the interior of the country, allowed to fly on commercial airliners. I was just in the airport in Houston, Texas, a couple days ago, and I saw migrants flying with their ankle monitors on, flying without IDs. This is the reality these days. They're all across the country, and when that message gets back home to their friends, to their family, more are coming.
Well, and have a listen to what these migrants were told by a border agent. Have a listen to this.
Okay, it's no problem if I go to Chicago. Either you want.
This is an easier time he's having getting into the country than I do as an American citizen. What message is this sending? This must be very demoralizing to an awful lot of Americans.
Yeah, and it's very demoralizing to these Border Patrol agents. They're just following orders from the Biden administration, from their superiors in Washington, D.C. That's really, tearing them apart. This isn't the job that they originally set out to do, to just process and release people. They wanted to secure the border, and they wanted to, take people into custody who may have legitimate claims to be in the country, maybe have legitimate fears of returning home, threats back home, and put them in detention until their cases are heard. But that's not the system anymore. The system is over capacity, and it's beyond repair at this point. The Biden administration is saying Congress needs to do something, Congress needs to do something. But it seems like, in the previous administration, I will say that there were a lot of things that were done at the executive level that we saw the numbers go down. That just hasn't been done yet. There hasn't been any action.
And Jennie, what do we know about this city called Colony Ridge, which a property developer seems to have set up in Texas, selling parcels of property to these migrants without even any documentation? It seems like there's a whole shadow government now springing up around these people.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of pressure on the state of Texas right now to take some kind of action as they have at the border, and I'm hearing the possibility of such action. This is an area that reporters have gone down to and exposed as being a hub for illegal immigrants that have taken over this area, bought property, are working in the area, and this is, of concern to those locals in places like Houston, which is not far from it. This is an area that has seen a lot of crime, where law enforcement fears entering, ICE fears entering. That's why a lot of these illegal immigrants go there and live there, is because they know that there's not anything to fear, any arrest or deportation. And of course, that's brought in a lot of cartel activity as well.
Jennie Taer, immigration reporter for the Daily Caller, thank you so much for explaining it all to us.